welcome to this edition of Minstrels on the Block, where we bring you the finest singer-songwriters in the Valley area. This week's special guest is Miss Nadine Coker. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Pleasure to have you on the show.
It's good to be here.
So tell me about yourself. Where were you born?
Well, in a house. I'm sorry. I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what was your family like up there? What did your parents do?
Well, at that time, I couldn't tell you. All I know is that I was born in Charlotte, and I had a chance to live with partially my grandmothers as well as my parents, and so we traveled quite a bit in my younger days. We moved from Charlotte to Pittsburgh, and from Pittsburgh I moved back to South Carolina. From South Carolina, then we moved to New York, and so we just traveled. No, they were not in the Army. We just did a lot of traveling, and so but I had a pretty good travel life, and it was good.
That's awesome.
Can't complain about that.
Now, did your dad have or your mom have a job that caused it, or did they just like to travel?
They just like to travel. So,
nice.
So they had a chance to do that, and I had an opportunity to see things that I guess some people wouldn't have seen, normally. And that was pretty much it. There's no glamour when it comes to that part.
Well, did you have any? Yeah, I like hearing people's experiences, things like that. Did you have? Are there any of memories from that time, or any specific good times that you can remember having?
I've had a lot of great times in growing up in all the areas. I've learned a lot of things when it comes to my grandparents. I remember partially going to school in the South, and when we moved to New York, I had to learn how to talk all over again.
Oh, yeah.
Because in living with them, they had a twang, and they did things a lot differently, and so when I moved to New York, people had a hard time understanding that over yonder. They didn't understand over yonder,
That's right, y'all.
They didn't understand the terms. Well, we would call them suckers, but they say lollipops, and up there. We would say in the South sodas, and they would call them pops up there. So it's a cultural, different colloquial sayings and all that. But it was okay. I mean, it was interesting. So I had to go to speech therapy and learn how to talk all over again.
Wow.
But it wasn't bad. It was, as a matter of fact, it really worked out for my good. Mm-hmm. And it helped me to understand how to really read and comprehend. And then it helped me, and later on in my life, to understand that if I ever lived in the South again, I would never sound like I came from the South. So it worked out well.
Well, that's cool. Now, there is a big difference between soda and pop.
Yes, the can.
So what brought you to this area?
There were some friends that lived in Columbus, Georgia. And we all lived in Charlotte at the time. And I came down to visit them in the late to mid 80s, and just to see what was going on, And so at the time when I came, I was out of a job, but I was looking for a job. And so they told me of a radio job that was available, and during that time was at WOKS. And so I applied for the position, and it was about 2 weeks before Christmas. And I said, well, Lord, if I am to be in this area, then you open the doors for me to come here before the next year come in, that I'll know I'm supposed to be here.
Right.
And if not, I'll just stay in Charlotte and look for a job and move on. And so a week before New Year's or so, I got a call from the guy that, he called me and said, Dino, he said, there's a job interview for you at Channel 9. No. And I'm like, well, I never applied for Channel 9, so I couldn't figure out how I got that position.
Small town.
And so I applied for the position, and I came down that following Friday, and was right before New Year's. And needless to say, I didn't get hired at Channel 9, but it opened the door for me to be back for the job at WOKS. And what happened there is that it was late in the evening. It was around 5 or 6 o'clock. Nobody does an interview during that time. But my mind kept bugging me, do it, call him, call him, call him. And so I called, at that time, Al Smith. He was the program director for WOKS, and I called, and he interviewed me, and I got the job.
Wow.
And so that was a divine intervention on that part. And ever since that time, I've been here. So it was good, you know. So I started working at WOKS. I did gospel, midday gospel. And I loved every moment of it. I never will forget. Before all that took place, after I applied for the position, I stood outside of the building and I pointed and I said, God, I want to work here. I want the best hours with the best pay. You do that for me, and I will give you the glory. And he did that for me, and I've been giving him the glory ever since then.
Cool.
So it was good.
Is that what? Now you do gospel music. Is that what? Were you doing gospel music before then, or was that your forte or your passion, or was there a starting point for that?
I started playing guitar when I was 9 years old. And I was in New York during that time. And I guess after playing a 2x4 and then a broom, or either start playing the air guitar, I figured, you know, my parents kind of got a hint that I probably want to play guitar. And so for Christmas, they told me I can get one gift, and whatever I wanted, that's what I was going to get for Christmas. And so we went in the store, and I looked for a guitar. And at that time, there was a company called M&E, toy manufacturer, and to me, it was a big guitar because I was 9 years old, so, you know. Yeah. So it was a beige and brown guitar. Never will forget it. It was a plastic guitar. It had, strings on it, and it sounded pretty good. And so I got that guitar and had a little book that came with it. And in the book, it had chords, how you make the chords. Right, yeah. And so I had, enough inside of me to know, okay, you do it this way. And I learned how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb. And so from that point on, everything that I learned how to play when it came to the guitar is a God-given ability. I just hear it. It's in me. God gave it to me. I play it. If I don't, I'll fake it until I make it. One way or the other. So either way, I had the opportunity to play guitar and just pick out different songs. Whatever I thought I wanted to play, that's what I did. That's why I enjoyed doing that. That night when I got that guitar, I stayed up half the night with it. I went to sleep holding it, woke up. I never would forget we had to go to Hempstead, Long Island, New York, because we lived in Amityville. And I took the guitar with me, and that's my thing. That's what I did. And from that point on, that's how I was able, to get started as far as playing guitar is concerned. And since that time, and during that time, there wasn't a lot of female guitar players. Yeah. And not that I was so great, but my mother was a big encourager. She knew I was making a whole bunch of noise, but she still said, my baby could play that guitar. And that's what I did. And so little by little, things started coming to me. I worked with my cousin's husband in the church, and they attended a holiness church. Now in the holiness churches, you either keep up or get out the way. Because everything is fast, where you may sing, down at the cross where my Savior died. They would be like, down at the cross where my Savior died. So you had to keep up. And so Junior at that time, the guy I was playing with, he would teach me different chords, and I kept them because mostly all the same songs, same chord changes, all that. And I was able to do that for a good period of time. And I loved it. So I hung with him for a little while. And then I had records. During that time, it was the 45s and the LPs. And so I would listen to those songs. And I grew up basically listening from James Brown to Al Green to Some of it at early stages of Eric Clapton to Bonnie Raitt and all those different people. I would listen to how and what they did.
Right.
I would copy what they did, you know, and usually musicians steals from other musicians anyway, so we don't care. So we steal all our, you know, we take little chorus things and little ditties from one of the other songs, put it together, make up your own song.
Yeah.
And so I was able to do that to the point that the door started open for me. And blues is basically what I grew up around.
Right.
You know, and especially, you know, around, at that time it was quartet music. That's all I basically listened to when I was growing up. But there was also the Edwin Hawkins, you know, the Oh Happy Day. You know, there was those contemporary people like Andre Crouch, all of them. You know, I had a chance to listen to them. And then I had a chance to play what they did, and it helped with the mixture of the blues as well as the contemporary gospel at that time. And so that's pretty much how I got into playing music.
And with those artists, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Now, just out of curiosity, from the time that you had the toy guitar, when did you move to like
a real one?
Yeah, a real guitar.
Okay. December. Got the guitar. January is my birthday. A month.
Oh, a month. Okay.
About a month. You
Cool.
know, I got my first guitar. It was. I never will forget. It was made by the company Lafayette, and it was. Now that I look back on it, it was an ugly looking guitar, but it was green and dark green, you know. But it, you know, I got a little amp that went with it, and so I had, you know, real strings, and I learned how to really tune it and, you know, do whatever. And I had a great time, you know. And from that time on, eventually they got me another guitar. Then they got me a bass, you know. Nice. So I started playing bass, and that was made by the company Hackstrom. They don't even make those anymore. Wow. And so from that point, I started getting guitars just like every year or so.
Nice.
And so I started playing and go out different. During that time, we used to do house parties.
Sweet.
And so it was live bands at the house parties. So I would always go where the guitar player was. And I would always try to get in to see if I could play. And by, again, being a female guitar player, I had the opportunity to show off.
Cool. Well, speaking of showing off, let's have a look at some of Nadine's songs. We'll be right back.